Welcome to Rooted and Rising, a soulful podcast hosted by Dr. Cheri and Ellice Boone. Join the conversation as Dr. Cheri and Ellice explore the transformative power of holistic healing from the inside out. Together, they guide listeners through the deep work of reconnecting with their roots, uncovering the unconscious wounds that shape us, and rising into the fullness of our higher selves. So please, welcome the hosts of Rooted and Rising, Dr. Cheri and Ellice Boone.
Hello, welcome to Rooted and Rising. I am Dr. Cheri, and I'm here with my co-host, Ellice Boone. You know, what story or narrative have you written that keeps you from living the life that you were meant to live? A lot of times we don't think about what we carry around. And so today's episode, we're going to talk about talk therapy and integration, an aspect that's becoming more popular, but that's been pretty much the foundation for my holistic integral therapy called HIT. I like it to make it short. And that helps us see the patterns beneath the surface and the variety of tools that we can use to rewrite what doesn't serve us any longer.
Yes, thank you for joining us. This is Rooted and Rising, and we're here to explore different ways to heal, to grow, and glow, but also to reconnect to the truest version of ourselves. Every week, we're bringing you different, very practical practices that you can do at home. And we're also bringing you stories, tools, and insights from our own experiences, research, and just life experience, really, that will help you not only to ground into who you are, but also to rise into your highest potential. So today, as Dr. Cheri mentioned, we're going to talk more about the benefits of talk therapy, which we can truly say she is an expert at. But we can talk about how sitting down with a trained, compassionate listener, like a therapist, can be a lot more than just sharing your problems with them. We are going to explore more about the HIT modality that she expressed here. This is a multidimensional modality that Dr. Cheri works with. It helps uncover deeply rooted beliefs that might shape our thoughts and our emotions, and in turn, our behaviors in life. So once we do that, we hope our listeners to gain an understanding of how integration of these things can help in all aspects of who we are and how we can become the best version of ourselves. So we hope that this podcast is inspiring to you and it leads you down a path of your own healing.
Maybe it'd be a good idea to, take a moment and talk about what HIT is. It's a little phrase I created, an acronym so that one, it gives a little bit of punch, but two, it reminds us that healing, it does come from the inside out and it's holistic. In meaning, what is holistic? We've talked about in other episodes, but it is, really addressing all of us, mind, body, spirit, soul, that the heart, we just, that there are we have learned, through all the studies, most recently, science is showing more often that we are very complex, far more complex than we thought. So going to therapy and just talking about our problems, and we can feel good in the moment because we let it go. Someone heard us, and that's really, really important to be heard, no doubt. But we develop patterns, and we can just we'll go back out and we'll keep doing the same thing unless we understand what we're carrying. And so and then integration is once we identify what we carry around, we need to know what works, what serves us, as I shared at the beginning, and what no longer serves us. And then we can start navigating through what patterns we want to break. And then every time we interrupt a pattern, the way it changes is to add something new that we took out. A lot of people will say, okay, I'm going to give that up, but then they'll replace something new. And so then they repeat. And this is why a lot of addictions, become so hard to break, especially psychological addictions, more so than even physical addictions. So so then the therapy is working from starting where you're at and then doing the work. And so we're going to look at tools that work together towards what's healthy, what's tangible, and something new that we can apply inside out.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Cheri. I love the HIT acronym. It's perfect. Like you said, it packs a punch. And I want to dive deeper into some of the modalities you use because I know that it entails so many different modalities within that acronym. And I think we had talked about doing one of our practices to start everyone off. So maybe I can get us started with that, getting a little more grounded. Each week, we're starting off our episode with a practice you can do at home. If you're not at home, please watch the replay and come back to this because you'd be surprised at how much you can gain from just a simple visualization or a simple breathing practice and how that can really change or set the tone of your day. So if you are available to do that and in a safe space, just take a moment to get grounded in your seat. Make sure you're in a quiet space where you won't be interrupted for just a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
So now I'd like you to take a deep breath and just kind of sink into your body. If it feels comfortable for you, you can close your eyes or just have a soft focus off screen. Notice what it feels like to take in that deep inhale through the nose and then exhale through the mouth. Notice your breath, the quality of your breath. Without judgment, just noticing. Try not to change anything about how you're breathing, but know that your body knows exactly how to breathe and does it without thinking in every moment. Noticing how the ground feels beneath your feet. And if it's possible, inviting in just a little bit more softness in any areas that feel tense. And now I want to invite you to bring to mind the chapter of your life that you're living right now in this moment. And without going into all the details in words and in your mind, allow this chapter to be a sensation or a feeling within the body. Allowing the subtle sensations in the body to be what you notice instead of creating words and putting language to your story just yet. The best way to do this is to stay quiet and just listen. And where do you sense your story living within your body? If you can, place your hand there and just notice. Now I want to invite you to gently trace this sensation back in time, going back to yesterday, going back to last year, and continue following that train back to your earliest memory or your earliest belief. Notice how your story changes along the way, and notice how your body might respond as you get close to these early memories or beliefs, as you get close to that root. Breathe deeply here. Send warmth and compassion to this place. Perhaps bring in some curiosity to that root, to that story. And now silently ask that part of you, that story, that sensation in the body, what do you need from me right now? Again, quiet listening for subtle sensations or messages coming in the form of a word, an image, color, a texture. Just allowing, not forcing, and being curious. It doesn't have to make sense in this moment, just noticing what comes through. And now I want you to bring your awareness back to your whole body, sitting in the space that you're in. And imagine in your mind that you're holding a pen in your hand. And this pen has the power to write the next page of your life. Remember to take a breath here. Remind yourself that you have the ability to pause, to reflect, and to choose how this next part of your life unfolds. You are the author of your story, and you get to write every word in your book. Taking another deep breath in here, through the nose, out through the mouth. Now you can gently open your eyes. When you feel ready, maybe stay off screen again for a moment, just holding this feeling within you. And remembering that you can revisit your roots at any time and go deeper. Don't get stuck there though, and just keep in mind that this is to get in touch with this part of you, to understand the layers of your story, with the idea that this is going to help you grow and that you have the ability to choose the direction in which you go from this point on. So thank you for sharing that practice. I hope that something came up for each one of you, whatever that was. There's no right or wrong, just being with yourself and being in that quiet moment, even if no imagery came through, can be a nice reset for the mind and the heart. So thanks for taking that time with us.
Thank you, Elise. That was wonderful. We could close the show with that, the episode with that. The reality is like a blueprint, of what real, it mirrors what happens within the integration process and tapping into that inner healing intelligence so beautifully. As we slow down, and we allow ourselves to look beneath the surface of the outside world, let's go inside our wonderful being. We are beings we are creators. And so we go that beneath the surface and explore, which God has so marvelously explore, who we are, what we feel, what we think, coming up. It's just wonderful to discover, what's the engine, what's driving us to show up as we do in the moment and feel what we feel in the moment. And, surprisingly, it's really is rooted from years or decades back that we have buried or we don't even know how don't even think to go to. And so once we see clearly, we can reflect on it, challenge it, and plant a healthier narrative in its place. It's beautiful. Thank you, Elise. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we have a break now, but when we come back, I'd love to dive into a little bit more about this practice and then more details about HIT therapy. So we'll see you in a moment.
Great. Thank you.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Open. Hi, welcome back to Root and Rising. Rooted and Rising, sorry. And Ellice, again, that imagery was beautiful, and I just feel like I just want to melt. I just feel so relaxed right now. So, but I really want to get back into sharing really what this show is about today, and that and what holistic integral therapy is about. I kind of gave a little description, but it's overall it's a comprehensive treatment plan that incorporates all the traditional evidence-based therapies, and we're going to focus on talk therapy today, but it also expands to other types of therapies. But today, the different top therapies, there's plenty to work with that. And that's cognitive behavioral therapy, that's psychodynamic therapy, existential therapy, narrative therapy, meaning-centered therapy are just a few that maybe we'll discuss today. These variety of modalities underscore the importance of being an individual and create our own blueprint so that we can truly integrate holistic practices that work for us and that optimize our therapeutic outcomes. By becoming aware of these threads, then we can begin to untangle, make room for healing that goes deeper than the immediate loss that maybe we walked in the room with, or the immediate angst that we have, and it really does help us evolve and transform.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you're kind of sharing here with some of the modalities that make up that HIT therapy. And it seems like this offers a little bit a different flavor to talk therapy. Like it brings about different results, like you're saying, a more holistic approach, which is really interesting. I wonder if we can just kind of break down each of these modalities for myself and for the listeners at home, just what they are, and maybe something will resonate with someone and they can talk to their therapist about using some of these alternative methods to get a little bit deeper and more holistic in their deep work. Now, CBT therapy, what does that stand for? What does that mean?
Cognitive behavioral therapy, it's probably one of the most popular therapies out there. It's a structured, goal-oriented psychotherapy that helps us identify and change unhealthy behaviors, because we identify our thought patterns, our belief systems, and then the behaviors that follow that. It helps connecting these thoughts and feelings and our actions to promote a healthier coping and improve well-being. Once we understand in a cognitive place, like we then we can confidently say, I want to change something. It's like, cleaning the lens of your glasses, since I have these on, and I clean them, and the world doesn't change. But now when I put that back on, I see so much more clearly, and therefore I have a choice to respond differently.
Mm. Oh, wow. Yeah. That seems like that might be one of the more common ones. Would you say most therapists are using today?
Yes, I think it's one of the most popular ones, and the ones that people gravitate towards.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I think we walk in the room, and that's what we do every day. We talk, and we interact that way. And so we feel the immediate relief when we share these things, and we get a little bit of tool to change how we talk.
Okay. Amazing. And you mentioned psychodynamic therapy. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
We've had that, that's Freudian kind of therapy, and it helps uncover those. We don't really lay on the couch nowadays, but some clients do, and that we uncover unconscious feelings, and we by just free association. Sorry, can't say the word, but it's like just talking, telling our story, and we can identify early attachment wounds, past losses that shape the way we're experiencing mostly unresolved grief,
Mhm.
unresolved business. And again, it's like holding a lantern to the hidden corners of your heart, or like opening the attic in your brain, and dusting those boxes off,
Mhm.
and resurfacing those old memories and forgotten stories. I like to think about the attic as sitting there and opening a box and looking at all these pictures. Like, I don't remember this. Oh, this is this, and unpacking them. And even our multi-generational, um, trauma that we carry within, and also strengths and resilience we carry. There are science is showing that we carry these stories in our DNA. And
Mm.
so through psychodynamics, some of that comes up, and we can unpack them and discover what's shaping our present life.
Mm. Very good. Okay. And then there were a couple more I had written down when we were talking earlier. You mentioned existential therapy. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and this is one of my favorites. It invites us to look directly at life's biggest questions. Like mortality, purpose, meaning, after a loss, and or life altering, incident. It's common to ask, why am I here? What now? And what does this all mean? It's like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, and asking, and the ocean, I like to look at the grains of the sand. It's like, I'm a particle, I'm one little grain of sand, and so why am I here? What direction, if I want to go on that ocean, where do I sail to? And you watch the waves and all, coming in and out. What does all this mean to who I am?
Yeah, beautiful. I can understand why that would be something you're drawn to with your cosmic way of being. It's these bigger questions, existential. It's something you're really good at bringing out in people. And I also feel like with existential therapy, it's so important and maybe overlooked, but to have real joy in life, you really need to feel purposeful. And without that purpose or those bigger questions, feeling like we have some sort of answer to them, we can feel really lost and disconnected. So I can really relate to why that would be so important. That's probably going to be one of my favorite therapies too.
And you, like you said, to sit down with these questions can also, we discover the joy, but initially it can be very terrifying,
Mm,
and it teaches us that within there lies a possibility for renewal,
mm,
and the integrating of that. You integrate all the aspects of ourselves that can strip away the illusions that we may carry around, because we do tell stories to ourselves, and they can be illusions, and invites us to live more intentionally and authentically, so we are more self-accepting.
mm. Yeah,
Okay.
so true and so beautiful. Let's see, another one I had on my list that I would love to learn more about is narrative therapy, which feels a little bit like it might relate to the practice we did this morning.
Yes. It's about stories we tell ourselves. We are always telling stories, and so after a loss, you can feel like it ends abruptly. My life will never be good again. I can't move forward without them. I was I happened to lose both my parents, within 9 months in 2000, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I felt like I became an orphan overnight. And then with the pandemic hitting, it was really untethering for me in feeling that my life, my sense of my whole definition of life changed like overnight. And with narrative therapy, this is where in your visualization, writing, the journaling, I had to, I couldn't, was it write my story. It was like, I recognized, oh, this is a new chapter. And I don't erase the stories that I have. I don't erase the loss. Pain can be a very great lesson. It can be so, refiner's fire. We in our society, we kind of run from pain. Who wants to have pain? But pain is such a teacher. And so by starting a new chapter, I was able to like weave into what just occurred and my life before as a daughter, and now a matriarch kind of my family tree, being the oldest. I could honor both the love that I felt I lost, but just changed, just transformed, and the life I'm still living. And so you become the author again, and you choose what chapter you write. You choose your theme, and you choose the context of your whole journey. You know, you edit the book, you erase your story, but you just rewrite your story, that serves you like the brain rewrites itself.
Yeah, it seems as though many people can get stuck in a narrative, right? And they get stuck in that story. And then, like you said, with the glasses, that frames their life, and they're not able to move out of that narrative because everything they see is validating their story that they're telling themselves. So I feel like the rewriting of that story with the help of reflection and guidance can be so powerful for someone to just completely shift their narrative and their perspective on life, and in which case will then shift their life. That's
Right,
beautiful.
right,
I was going to
right.
touch on one other thing that I noticed in both therapies, with existential and narrative, that there's like these taboo topics. With existential therapy, it's often taboo to talk about our mortality. And with the narrative therapy, you mentioned grief. And like you said, sometimes we want to avoid pain altogether as a society. We don't want to talk about the grief that people are feeling. We don't want to get stuck in that. We just want to be positive and move on. And it just shows the importance of having these conversations, whether that's with your therapist or with close friends, but to bring up these things that are taboo, that are not talked about, and how that can actually add so much richness and value to our lives, just bringing in those conversations. So that's something you can do at home, listeners.
And a sense of wholeness, right? Because we can have life without death. And
Mhm.
we don't have death without life. This transition. So when we taboo part of that, like we can't talk about death, then can we really live? And
Mhm.
so we really do kind of chop ourselves in half. So that was a perfect. And so evolving into our authentic self, we can see the miracle of the cycle rather than avoidance of something that we think we incorporate as fearful.
Right, right. And there's always value in every pain. Like you mentioned, I don't know your words, but you said something about how powerful pain can be. And going through deep grief, I know for myself, the deepest, darkest moments of grief that I've experienced have been my greatest teachers in this life so far, and have helped me to appreciate, sort of like seeing the darkness helps you to really value the light. And I think that that's really necessary in our lives. I think we have to have the pain to really value the good. So, yeah, it's
That's
really
really great.
contrast.
Yeah, it's really a powerful tool. And so I do have and that one more tool, one more therapy I want to talk about, but it looks like we're ready for a commercial break. So let's just take a moment for our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Hello, welcome back to Rooted and Rising. We were discussing all of the different modalities that make up the HIT therapy, as Dr. Cheri coined it. And we left before our break having one more to speak about and ask her about, which is the meaning-centered therapy. So if Dr. Cheri would like to share a little bit more about that with our listeners.
I said existential is my favorite, but I don't know, meaning-centered might be my more favorite, because it focuses on, the purpose, which is kind of existential, but even in the shadow of loss. And so it's it really it's like finding a North Star. Life's hardships don't vanish, but we find a guiding light to move toward and through them. And so we talked about pain being a teacher. Sometimes our hardships, they sometimes they don't vanish. Sometimes they are. Some people have a life of hardship, and so it's helping to know that find that light that can strengthen us and help us endure, but also really come to know there's a purpose to it. And with this purpose, you see people who they become master teachers for all of us, despite what they're going through, and in what joy is versus just a happy life. It's a real inner joy and love for others. And so I really admire people who can do that, and in ways that I think that are discovered through the meaning-centered therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully more so with HIT. So and I really by the goal here is you take all these plus other modalities, and you create a blueprint for your own healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're looking to do for ourselves.
Yeah, so you're really weaving in. I would imagine you do this just in a session more spontaneously as things arise. You're working with all of these different modalities throughout a session and bringing them in.
Yeah. So I really believe in teaching the client to from the very get-go to own their story and tap into their own intuitive sense. And so my goal is when I meet a client is to meet them where they're at. I don't have a preconceived agenda for them. A lot of people will say, how does therapy work? What are you going to do? And how long is it going to take? And, I want to get better, and which I totally respect and honor, because we all want that, but I really put them in command. We start where you're at, and you're going to tell me, where we're going to go, and you're going to tell me how long this takes, and we're going to get through this. Now, I don't just sit there passively. Of course, I'm pretty directive in my approach, and my greatest guidance is my intuition. I've learned that as a byproduct through all my work. It was not intentional, but I learned that's where it came from. And now I can use it, intentionally. And so with all these tools that we have, it's pretty much an eclectic approach, helping the client tap into that inner healer and open their ears to hear the quiet whisperings of what ails them in healing their mind, body, and spirit. My the first book is Whisperings from Within, and so it is really like quieting down, and that and we do have that inner voice, and he, she, they speak to us, and we can then begin begin understanding the power of integration. And this has been, I've been doing this for years, and now it's integration is like a buzzword. It's a new, it's become more and more popular. I don't think it's something that's a fad. I think it's evolution, that we're going to evolve now, and be able to really grow in ways our predecessors have not been able to grow. And so I think it's going to be pretty fascinating to see how everyone shifts and to understand themselves more fully. I've learned that the windows open to our light within, and then being able to witness, me together with the client, but the client to be able to listen, to witness their own marvelous healing, and then to share it with me, how intelligent that inner healer is, and how influential the course of their healing can be. And then they get it, and so it's like imagining yourself setting out on a life-changing adventure, and that you'll take you to the deeps of your awareness. I kind of liken it to playing a pool, and you're in the shallow end, you're playing volleyball, you're doing somersaults, you're jumping up and down. It's so fun. You're splashing in the water, dunking each other is a blast. But then there comes a point where it's like, okay, now I'm needing something else. So then you go into the deep end, and you go into if you think, imagine an ocean, you go into the deepest, and all of a sudden you see the marvelous of creation. You see the coral and the tropical fish and the whales. And it's like, oh my gosh, you got new playmates, and you got new, a new world. And so you discover these layers. And so we start in therapy, this awareness may begin with layers of anguish, trauma, our limited beliefs that prevent us from, moving forward and seeing past the demons in our head, and any possibilities like a black wall that we just can't get past. But then we also, in those deep waters, we begin to see, oh my gosh, the creative forces within ourselves. And it can come to us in light. It can come to us in colors. It can come to us in aromas. It can come to us in taste, and it can come to us on sensations. Our body can vibrate, and people just literally say, my body's vibrating, and these layers. And so these layers of resilience and knowledge and inspiration, endurance become to surface, and they become keys rising above these dark nights of the soul. And then we start finding these tools that lead to healing and wholeness.
Wow. Well, that was packed with so much information. Thank you for sharing. There were a few points that I wanted to touch in on and just kind of reiterate. One that I really appreciated was about how the client, they want to know what's going on and how you're going to do therapy, how they're going to be healed or get better. And you said it's about them showing up, and then it's a collaborative effort. This isn't you sitting back and just listening, but it's also not you fixing them. And I think that's an important piece, is that even in my coaching work, when I'm helping guide people through big experiences and integrate these journeys that they've experienced, it's not about what I'm doing. It's about how they show up, and then how that and my guidance will alchemize together to create this healing. And they can go as deep as they want. They can go whatever direction that they want. They actually are in charge in that way, and with guidance can come to these incredible realizations and transformations. But it's, they can stay in the shallow water and play all day if they want to, and we can be there to witness that. But when they're ready to really take that dive and go deep, there's so much to discover within, and there's so much reward in diving deeper into the darkness, which might be a little scary and unknown, but there are endless treasures there, as I think we can both attest to for ourselves as well as for clients that we've worked with. So it's really beautiful to know that this is a co-creation with each client and it's completely unique. Yes, we have all of these modalities that you're pulling from. I have a lot of different modalities that I'm kind of weaving in and out. So it's a very similar flowing process that's very alive. And it's beautiful to hear more about how that process works for you and your clients, and just how HIT overall kind of encompasses so many styles and things so that it's not one size fits all. It's, here's an entire tool kit, and I get to pull from that based on what you're wanting to go towards and what you're resonating with and what's working for you. And that makes it such a beautiful way of doing your practice. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. That's wonderful.
You're welcome. I love it. And I just love what what you talked about for a moment is that there is like there really isn't a wrong path, unless we're harming somebody or harming ourselves. But outside that, playing the shallow end is a beautiful life. And that is good. It's really what the client wants to discover. And and they want to unfold and how they want to evolve. And we all have different paths, and we want to honor all those paths. And so I talk about the complexity of the human being, and one of the complexities is sometimes living a simpler life. And we don't always have to live a a life that is the word, but we don't have to live a complex life. And so we just want a beautiful life, and we just want to have a joyous life, and either way can be joyous.
Yeah, so true. And just to elaborate on that a little bit further, I agree. Sometimes people can actually get caught in the fixing. They can get caught in, I need to do more. I need to more therapy, this, that, and that becomes something that is not allowing them to live a simple, joyful life because this obsession or addiction to fixing themselves. So you can go either extreme, but the point is to find some middle ground of growth and your authentic self and finding the joy in life in the simplest of things. And if that requires some unearthing, some finding your roots and digging deeper, wonderful. If it doesn't require that, wonderful. Wherever you are, you're right where you're supposed to be. And that's important to remember.
It is. And to add another thing, because this is one of my probably my pet peeves in working with people is the one of the worst things we do to ourselves is pathologize ourselves. If they took I think I might have said another episode, but if we took the DSM-5, diagnostic manual that we use in my profession, and we, and it's about this thick, and we collapsed it, and created one diagnosis, it would be unresolved loss and grief. All these disorders would disappear, and it would be that. And so life is about, unfortunately, a lot of life is about suffering. Fortunately, too, the definition of passion is suffering. And but if we can stop pathologizing and just navigate and be creative in how we navigate through our changes, and encompass all the things like we said, life and death, then it's easier to capture the joy and the love for ourselves and then for others.
Yes, thank you. Now, I think we have a little time before our next break. Do you have any maybe real client stories, impact that this HIT therapy has had on people, or just anything you want to share that's like a real life experience?
Well, if I think about it, I remember it's not uncommon. It's probably from a lot of stories, but people will come in with the cognition, of feeling like a frustration. Like one person, he came in and said, "I'm always angry. I don't want to be angry because I'm destroying my family with anger." And so as we, that's pathologizing himself. And so as we do a reflection and create an awareness, you kind of unearth, that it's not anger, it's something else. And it usually is fear, and of not being good enough, loss of control. And so then as we unearth it more, we, through all these, therapies that we can talk about. Things that come up is things like abandonment and bullying, maybe loss of being a childhood because was parentified, had to grow up too fast. And so with that loss of childhood comes grief. And so, I'm seeing, so we can talk more about that, but that's the beginning of like, oh, now I know I have grief, and now I can start applying this inner healing, and we change this narrative and start writing the story I want, and recapture and start the childhood that he lost, because we never can stop. It doesn't matter how old we are. We can recapture every phase that we lost. We can recapture. So in a nutshell, that is a story, and we can elaborate if we want after the break. But I see that we're about to have a break, so why don't we go ahead for the break and come back and see where we're at.
All right. Thank
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Hi, welcome back to Rooted and Rising. Dr. Cheri, before our break, you were telling us a little bit about this real client story. Just wanted to make sure you got in everything you wanted to say there, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, and, I think that, as I said, like really quickly, there's an evolution that happens. And once we recognize it, unearth what's underneath. I am angry because that's just a symptom. That is not the core. We can start applying some of the blueprint that the client wants to follow. And in this case, we began with the narrative. It was I get angry, and then it was I'm not a good person. And so then he evolved immediately into the meaning centered perspective of being I'm angry at myself. I'm not, there's no purpose to me. I just ruined everyone's life. And so he was so encompassed in his shadow of loss and shadow of the dark night of the soul. And so recognizing that, then that he was in a dark night of the soul, that was a phase, and that there's more to him, and that there's a possibility of a different cognition. Then he went into the existential therapy and started like, okay, so what, I have a purpose. What is my purpose? And so he started going through his family members that he had responsibility for. And so he, and then saw that there was, that he could give his own posterity what he didn't get for himself. And he could have compassion for his parents, what they couldn't give him. And this opened his heart and his ability to love. And then he started, he grieved the losses with himself. He has such compassion, the self-compassion kicked in. And he was able to cradle the little boy that was like so lost that carried the anger and the wounds, and start the healing process. It was really beautiful, and then he could go and begin to write his story and the new chapter in his life. and that is that is where, then we can do some cognitive behavioral therapy to reinforce it and the new meaning. So that in a nutshell, that's kind of, what we can begin to do with healing.
Wow, I feel like you just listed every one of the therapies in that one with that one client, which is a testament to how much is woven in and out depending on what their experiencing is. Like you even mentioned IFS in there and working with his parts and his little boy. And so
Yes.
it's almost endless the ways that we can relate and reflect and guide clients back to themselves and to a place where they can realize that there's more than just this pain they're experiencing. And there could be a choice in their story that they're writing, that they could have the power and control to change their story. So that's really amazing and just incredible to hear that real life example of how you wove it all together. um, Wonderful. And I
Yeah.
think, go ahead. Did you have something else?
And I think that, and recognize that this is, sounds wonderful, but there really is science to this,
Hmm.
and some people really want to understand that, but the brain, has a neuroplasticity to it. And science is showing that at any age, we can rewrite our brain and rewire our brain, and doing all these, work and tapping, the imagery that you did, that we did, and, in writing our story, starts the rewiring, right away. And those neural paths open up, and you said, like, writing, into our journaling and writing doing the journaling, it can happen in so many ways. And you mentioned, a one prompt, and maybe to end, I like to share one really fun journaling tool that I really enjoy for rewriting the brain is to pick up your journal and your non-dominant hand. I'm left-handed, so it's my right hand. I would take my right hand and I'd write on the left side of the page a question, and then with my dominant hand, I would answer the question on the left side of the page, because I'm the right side of the page, because I'm left-handed. And so we cross over, and that is engaging both sides of the brain, and tapping into centers that we sometimes block. And we start dialoguing with ourselves to start to begin the healing process within, tapping that inner and healing intelligence, but also becoming our own master teacher and guide. And I have clients do this all the time, and they bring the writings in, and we start and that's where we collaboratively, like, navigate through that. But we can open doors. That's another exercise that can engage more all of ourselves and the neuroplasticity of the brain.
That's so great. I know we've shared about free writing and journaling prompts in most of our episodes. We both definitely believe and have witnessed for ourselves the power of journaling, but this takes it to the next level. I love that. So writing with your non-dominant hand the question, and then answering with your dominant hand, and just that crossover of the brain. Again, it's allowing the other parts of your brain to be activated versus just that analytical side, and allowing the deeper layers of emotions to come out, which is really important.
And the other layer is kind of like hugging ourselves. We cross over, and we hug ourselves. And I remember, as a social worker, I went into, and I learned from a foster mother, which I just am indebted to her to this day. And she was, and I went to visit her. We had a premature druggy baby, and
Mm.
and the baby couldn't had to learn to suck, and baby was going through withdrawals, and so she showed me how she swallowed the baby up, and she crossed the baby's arms over, like a hug, and swallowed really tight. And then she would carry the baby into a room and face a corner in the dark, and take all stimulation away, because when you're going through withdrawals, all the stimulation is too much for the baby. And then she would, begin to give it a bottle to teach it to suck, and but it calmed the baby down. Just a swaddling calm. I watched the baby just calm down right away. We are such powerful healing agents. Babies teach us how to do that. So the journaling kind of a crossover, but if you want to take a break and you start feeling agitated, give yourself a big hug, and just feel the love you give to others. When we hug others, feel your own hug. What does it feel like? And what power can you emanate to yourself, so then you can give to others even more purposely and intentionally. And so that's another way to calm things down, because sometimes when we write, we get activated. And so, and that's where bringing it in and collaborating with somebody, we can, then we can add other tools we haven't talked about today to help calm, the mind, body, and spirit.
Beautiful. Okay, I feel like we both need to end with that. That
Oh,
self-talk.
just right.
Everyone, all the listeners should do this with us. Just, yeah, really feeling into what it feels like to give yourself comfort to give yourself love, and that we're able to do this at any time. We can always access this love and this self-comfort. What a beautiful gift that is. Oh, thank you, Dr. Cheri. I feel like this was such a beautiful and informative episode. And I want to give the listeners one journal prompt if they want to have a little help with asking a question. Sometimes it can be hard to think of things. And we'll include this too, perhaps in the show notes. But let's see, which question do we want to ask? Let's say, if the story of your life is a book, what chapter are you in right now, and who is writing it? And I'm going to add one more question. See which one resonates for you, listeners. If you stripped away fear, guilt, and expectation, who would you be right now? So we'll end there. Just remember that your story's alive. It's not set in stone. Be curious, be compassionate with yourself, and you can become the most beautiful, joyful version of you. And I guess we can say, if anything else to add, Dr. Cheri, is at the end
No,
here.
I think we can end. I just think we can end. So just send
All
them
right.
away
Wonderful. Until next time, stay rooted
and keep rising.
This has been Rooted and Rising with hosts Dr. Cheri and Ellice Boone. Through honest conversation, clinical insight, and creative reflection, Dr. Cheri and Ellice will empower you to reclaim your voice, your vitality, and your vision. This podcast is not about quick fixes. It's a return to deep knowing, gentle unraveling, and lifelong integration. Tune in each week, Wednesdays, 12 noon Eastern.